Hello and welcome. My name's Susannah Streeter and I'm moderating this session, and I'm absolutely delighted to introduce both Chester, Elton and Adrian Gostick, who are with me. Chester is actually joining us from New Jersey and Adrian is joining us from Utah. So fantastic to have you with us here today. I'm in Bristol, England, and I'll be posing the questions throughout this session. Now, you're here to talk about leading with gratitude in this time of crisis. And as I understand, you both have a lot of experience in helping companies, helping CEOs do just that, even before we arrived at that point. So, Chester, already you've been talking to lots of chief executives about what they should do. People are crying out for help, aren't they? And really, can you sum up what kind of questions that they're asking you at this moment in time when you're talking to them and they're coming to you for advice? What do they want to know? How do you lead with gratitude?
Well, thanks for that wonderful introduction, Susannah, and delighted to be with you here today. And you're right, CEOs now really are struggling as to how they can keep their employees, engaged, enabled, and energized. How can they keep them connected to the business when they're so disconnected in so many other ways? When you've got people working from home and yet you've got some people on the front lines, maybe making deliveries, doing those essential services, the juggling act for a lot of leaders is, how do we address each individual's needs? Because now it's so much more diverse than when we could bring everybody together. So in leading with gratitude, we learned a lot of lessons from the recession, from the 2008, 9, 10 era, and how leaders came through that. And so there still are some CEOs from that era, and a lot of those lessons apply now. What's really different is reinforcing people, not just intellectually and in their physical environment, also reinforcing them emotionally. How do we make sure that they're not forgotten? How do we make sure they're still connected? And those are a lot of the questions that are being asked of us. How do we keep people not just intellectually, but also emotionally engaged in our business? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And Chester, you've been working with Adrian for quite some time now. You got together over your book, The Carrot Principle. Tell me more about that, Adrian. Is it really just as it seems? Employees need a lot of carrot. They certainly don't just need the stick.
Right. And it's a little bit more than we think of. When we think of, carrots, the idea is recognition. The idea is, are we rewarding and recognizing our people? And what we found as we've studied gratitude over the last few years is that this is something we all know we should be doing as leaders. And yet so few of us are good at this, especially in tough times. We have a tendency to hunker down, to really focus on, let's keep the bottom line going. We worry about our customers and we forget about our people. And what we found as we studied gratitude and we talked to many CEOs of some of the world's most successful organizations is that we found this is more than just recognizing your people. It's appreciating what they're doing. It's the first part is seeing the value that's being created around you. And the second part then is finding ways to really touch your people every day in meaningful ways that will mean the most to them. And so that's really where we began this work, is figuring out what the best leaders did, as Chester said, in the worst of the last recession to lead their organizations forward.